Grand rising, grand arrival, grand return. Peace and blessings to the righteous and the repentant alike. Welcome to Don't Miss It podcast with your host, Sophia Spiritualite. And this is where we talk about actions of the federal government, and discuss the news of the day from a perspective that is more than likely going to be missed based on our interest of protecting those individuals who are from the land. And that could mean any number of things, and you can self-select if this kind of content is acceptable to you. Today, in this episode, we're going to discuss one of the presidential actions. So we have 3 episodes a week. 2 of the episodes will cover the news of the week, and the 3rd episode for the week is going to cover presidential actions, because there's really important ones that need to be discussed, need to be clarified, need to be delineated to know how they apply to our particular group if you self-select as one of our people. All right, so this presidential action was from January the 20th. It was one of the first actions that was taken, and it is called Restoring Accountability for Career Senior Executives. And we're going to read the whole memorandum, and I'm going to give some commentary along the way, and then we'll have a discussion at the end. So, January 20th, 2025, memorandum for the heads of executive departments and agencies. Subject, Restoring Accountability for Career Senior Executives. Career Senior Executive Service, SES officials are charged to ensure that the executive management of the government of the United States is responsive to the needs, policies, and goals of the nation, and otherwise is of the highest quality, as required by Section 3131 of Title V United States Code. SES officials have enormous influence over the functioning of the federal government and thus the well-being of hundreds of millions of Americans. As the Constitution makes clear, and as the Supreme Court of the United States has reaffirmed, the executive power, all of it is vested in a president who must take care that the laws be faithfully executed. This is Ciela Law, LLC versus Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, 591 U.S. 197, 203, which was from 2020. Because no single person could fulfill that responsibility alone, the framers expected that the president would rely on subordinate officers for assistance. And that's ID at 203 to 204. The president's power to remove subordinates is a core part of the executive power vested by Article 2 of the Constitution, and is necessary for the president to perform his duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Because SES officials wield significant governmental authority, they must serve at the pleasure of the president. Only that chain of responsibility ensures that SES officials are properly accountable to the president and the American people. If career SES officials fail to faithfully fulfill their duties to advance the needs, policies, and goals of the United States, the president must be able to rectify the situation and ensure that the entire executive branch faithfully executes the law. For example, SES officials who engage in unauthorized disclosure of executive branch deliberations violate the constitutional rights of Americans, refuse to implement policy priorities, or perform their duties inefficiently or negligently should be held accountable. The president must be able to trust that the executive branch will work together in the service of the nation. My administration will restore a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Therefore, A, within 30 days of the signing of this memorandum, the Director of the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, in coordination with the Director of the Office of Management and Budget, OMB, shall issue SES performance plans that agencies must adopt. B, agency heads who, along with their senior staff, manage career SES officials as one of their core functions, shall use all available authorities to reinvigorate the SES system and prioritize accountability. C, each agency head shall, as necessary and appropriate and consistent with the procedural requirements for Section 3395 of Title 5 United States Code, reassign SES members to ensure their knowledge, skills, abilities, and mission assignments are optimally aligned to implement my agenda. D. Each agency head should terminate its existing Executive Resources Board (ERB) institute a new or interim ERB, and assign senior non-career officials to chair and serve on the board as a majority alongside career members. E. Each agency head should terminate its performance review board membership and reconstitute membership with individuals committed to full enforcement of SES performance evaluations that promote and assure an SES of highest caliber. And F. Any agency head who becomes aware of an SES official whose performance or continued occupancy of the position is inconsistent with either the principles reaffirmed in this order or their duties to the nation under Section 3131 of Title 5 United States Code shall immediately take all appropriate actions up to and including removal of that official with the support of OPM and OMB. Restoring an accountable government workforce is a top priority of my administration. That is the executive order. This is fantastic. If you don't know what the senior executive service is, you have bureaucrats that are regular GS1 to GS15. Those individuals are hired. They go through the typical hiring process. They are paid well within the ranges that the federal government allows. The senior executive service is the managers. And basically what happened is during the time of Carter, his sister implemented this senior executive service. And the idea was these people would be hired from outside of the government, meaning they're not one of the GS levels. They're hired outside of the government. They're paid salaries that are really not discussed, not clarified. And they take their orders from people who, not the executive branch that's in charge right now, but people outside of the government. So when people say the shadow government, they really mean the SES. Now the career bureaucrats, they're also terrible, but they go in a separate category. These individuals who are SES, what they do is once you get into the SES, and they have their own flag. So these are enemy combatants within the United States. They have their own flag that they fly, usually right beside an American flag, but they're not loyal to the executive branch. The senior executive service is, they're supposed to serve at the pleasure of the president. Everybody in the executive, all of the bureaucracy is charged to serve at the pleasure of the president. What has happened is, because our real enemy is the British monarchy, as far as, what you would call it, as far as it's related to our bureaucracy and how our government operates, we have the Pope that tries to control the way our churches and our communities operate, but that's, not really, that's something separate, right? So under the terms of the bureaucracy, the British are the ones who control this through the use of something that they have called the Crown Agents, and literally directly from the Privy Council in the UK itself. That is who actually controls the senior executive service when you boil it down. And so basically they're not serving at the pleasure of the president, they're serving at the pleasure of the king. And so when people say that, oh, we won the Revolutionary War and the Brits left and all that, never happened. We have never, up until I would say today, of course, the time of this recording is February the 28th. Up until this day, we have not had a minute where the British was not controlling America. Trump is putting an end to that very, very strategically, which is quite amazing. But we have not had a moment where these people were not controlling everything. And so the British, the king, because they look at us as a vassal, like as basically a cash cow. And with the USAID scandal, it's obvious that they believe that we are their cash cow. Like they could literally do whatever they want and we would just go along with it. It's really horrific what's been going on. to be quite honest. So, anyway, I just say all that to say that the senior executive service is the one who would not everybody is asking who was running the government when Biden was quote unquote president, and that's the answer. It's the senior executive service, because they get their orders from the king. And so whatever, well, before it was the queen, but whatever the king said, that is exactly who they've been getting their orders from these last 4 years. So the bureaucracy, the lower level government workers, never needed to get instructions from Biden. This is why this whole USAID thing, all of this stuff that Doge is doing, is really putting a hamper on the way that they operate, because they are not used to having their orders come from one person. Another thing that the SES does is that they make sure that there's no, it's called plausible deniability. So let's say, for example, you come from the tech world. Well, they may put you as a tech person into the FBI. And so you don't know anything about what the FBI does or anything like that. And so someone has to tell you what to do, because you literally don't know what is customary. This is what we're seeing as of today with Pam Bondi. She has no idea what to do at Justice. She never should have accepted that nomination. That's going to be a real issue for her, because she doesn't know how the federal government works. It doesn't work like how it works in Florida. So she's going to accept that position. What she should have been doing is figuring out how to make it work. And that's not what she did. She did something totally different. We'll soon see Kash Patel is the same way. But so the senior executive service are the ones who are keeping certain things away from her, because they have their orders from outside of the government, outside of the executive branch, on what to do. And this is a huge problem. So with this executive order, which was done on the first day, none of your people, the only people who talk about the senior executive service is Aim for Truth. aimfortruth.org, American Intelligence Media. You can look them up on YouTube. They're the only ones who talk about this. They're the only ones who did a deep dive on this. None of your influencers, your conservative influencers, will touch this with a 10-foot pole, because the ones who weren't being paid from USAID were being paid by senior executive service 100,000%. And they'll never discuss this, especially the ones who were in the government. I'm not going to go into the names, especially the ones who are lawyers and they were in the government. These people are senior executive service agents. And so, no, they're not going to discuss this. Then no one ever discussed this. The media didn't pick up this executive order. It was literally just buried, which is why it's really important to understand. So basically, something else that I want to talk about within this is the Executive Resources Board and the Performance Review Board. These two particular boards are the ones that actually give the orders to the SES agents on what they're supposed to do. Not the executive branch. No. The Performance Review Board and the Executive Review Board, Resources Board. Okay. This was being run by Bruce Orr, which I'm not going to go into Bruce Orr right now, because I like my my calm voice. If I start talking about Bruce Orr, I'm going to go off. But these are traitors to this country and deserve a traitor's death, in my opinion. But what Trump did was say, get rid of these boards and put non-career people on these boards. That's never been done. Never been done. What these review boards and these resource boards do is, let's say, for example, you take somebody like Anthony Fauci. Of course, he's SCS, right? 100%. Let's say that he has a salary per year of $900,000, because I think that's what it was. Well, if he does what the Performance Review Board and the Executive Resources Board want him to do, then he receives a bonus. How much is this bonus? We don't know. How long does this bonus last? We don't know. There's no records. Just like in the Treasury, there's no records. There's no records of any of these things that they're doing. It's plausible deniability. If there's no records, nobody can be blamed. That's not how it works, but this is what This is the system that they've adopted. If there's no records, then there can be no responsibility. And so you have these individuals who get these kind of bonuses and all of this stuff, and we don't know how much it is. We don't know how often. We don't know. It could be every paycheck. So he could be getting $900,000 a year, but he could have a performance review board bonus or a resource board bonus that he gets in addition to his $900,000. It could be every 2 weeks. It could be every month. It could be every quarter. We don't know. There's no records, so there's no way to figure out what's been going on. Now, where's all this money come? Oh, most of your people in the House of Representatives and also in the Senate are also senior executive service. So it's not like limited, which is a whole nother set of issues. I'm trying to go off. But anyway, it's a whole nother set of issues. So what Trump did with this executive order is he completely reorganized SES. Now, at the end of 2020, the beginning of 2020, he was actually getting ready to defund them and sent their salary down to $1. And he had basically proposed this, sent it to them to put into law, whatever. Well, when Pelosi and Raskin got wind of that's what he was planning on doing, that's when we saw the George Floyd riots and all that stuff break out, and that stuff be funded with such fervor. The Black Lives Matter, all that stuff was funded with such fervor because this SES was getting ready to lose their power. Now, in this administration, he's handling it different. Instead of telling them what he was planning on doing, he just issued an executive order. And because the power is in the executive, and so whoever Trump has on his team is letting him know, hey, no, the executive has to have all the power. They are violating the rules by saying the executive can't have the power. And so many of the lawsuits that you see in court have to do with this. Now, mind you, a bunch of these judges are also senior executive service agents. This senior executive service problem is a problem on the scale that people don't understand. The names of the people who are in the senior executive service are kept in a book called the Plum Book. So if you've heard of the Purple Revolution, that is one of these things that George Soros uses, but it's no coincidence that they call these books the Plum Books. Plum is purple, and this is the revolution from the outside. This is what they have been using to break down our country all of this time. And this executive order has taken a stab at that because it forces them to argue the fact that they have the power to be independently organized under Trump uses Article 2 of the Constitution, under Article 2, and they don't. Every bureaucrat has to be the president is responsible for every bureaucrat in the executive branch. All of these people are within the executive branch because it was formed with an executive order. So all these people are under the executive branch. They can't get away from that. And this executive order goes right to the heart of that. Now, mind you, these people don't do good jobs. Like, these are not good people. They're not good people. I don't care if you know one and the one that you know is a good person. They're not good people. Okay. They knowingly or unknowingly work day and night to subvert the power of the executive branch. So they're not good people, including Kash Patel. Not a good person. Okay. I don't care what anybody says. These are not good people. They don't do good work. They don't know what they're talking about in many cases. They're moved around from agency to agency, so they never get an idea of what's going on. So if you've seen a TV show like Burn Notice, it's basically like the main character, he's basically like a senior executive service member that they kicked out. So when you see how he's got this boss come after him, this boss come after him, and it just keeps going on and on and on and on. He's fighting these people over and over until he gets like in the middle of, what was that, season 3, where the other guy, Jesse, gets a upper hand on them and does something that's unexpected. But at the end of the series, Burn Notice is a perfect example of understanding how these people work. At the end of the series, the person who had been attacking him the whole time was the one who had not targeted him, but targeted his father. And the targeting he did on his father caused his father to treat him differently, which forced him, because they had pegged him. I think his name is Mike. I can't remember his name. Oh my gosh. Anyway, they had pegged him as someone that they wanted in their agency. And so they literally drove his father crazy so that he would leave at 17 and join the military. This is it's gross what these people will do to get certain, you know how they knew that they wanted him? His name is Weston. That's his last name. They knew that they wanted him based on his birth chart. They collect, you give birth in a hospital, you tell them the child's name, and then they do magic basically on the child to determine if they want to use this child for something. And if they know they really want a certain child for something, then they will attack your family all the way until they can get you to respond in a way that they want. So you will do what they want you to do. This is how this kind of high level magic is how the government has been operating. And with the dismantling of the SES in this manner, it is also dismantling the magic. The time for that is over, and I talk about that more on my spiritual channel, but in general, this is how it works. The time for that is over. They're no longer going to be able to target children from the time of their birth and determine if they want them to be one of their agents, and then give them like a video game style path to follow so that they end up as one of their agents. That all that time is over, which is really, really good for everyone. We don't need that anymore. So I hope this video has been helpful. We'll do this every week. Once a week, we'll go over different executive orders and just kind of get an understanding and an idea of their value among the masses. So thanks for joining us for the Don't Miss It podcast. I'm your host, Sophia Spiritualite. Peace and blessings, and we will see you in the next episode.